Hi, my name is Ivan Connerman. I'm a leadership performance advisor with Wingspan Performance in Charlotte, North Carolina. I wanted to share something that happened on a conversation I had today with one of the leaders that we support. We'll call him Joe. Joe has a conversation coming up with his team, and he's clearly got some concerns about how it's going to go. As we started to talk about the conversation, I asked Joe, well, what is it you're concerned about? And he said, well, I don't want it to come across like this. I don't want it to be that. I don't want team members to feel this particular way. I asked Joe, well, what do you want to do? How do you want the conversation to go? So Joe started to think, and the more he thought about it, the clearer he got. And he kept getting more and more specific with what he did want. This is awesome. Oftentimes people will start with what they don't want and they won't go far enough into what they do want. Critical part though was still coming up. I asked Joe, well, Joe, how are you going to make sure that that happens? How are you going to do your part to contribute to that outcome? Now I was talking with Joe about what he himself was going to do, what he was going to practice. That's what we call it, his practice in that conversation. The practice will often revolve around a technical, behavioral, or communication aspect of what Joe is bringing to the table. Having a sharper focus is really important when we're working in situations that are dynamic. There is a high level of uncertainty. We have complexity and ambiguity. That really describes the situation we're in right now with this pandemic and the economic impact that it's having on everyone. As we mentioned before, people will often start with what it is that they don't want. And that's a great place to start. Usually we're aware of what it is we want to stay away from. What's important is to not stop with what it is that you don't want. Keep going. So knowing what's off limits can be really helpful. As long as you keep going for what it is that I want to do, how do I want to show up and do my part? So keep getting specific with how you're going to contribute. That's a fantastic way for you to get really clear with the language that you would use. A goal I have is to be clear enough in how I'm going to practice that I could say it to someone else and they would understand. This focus, this really precise focus, works just as well on technical issues as it does on behavioral and communication issues. So I'm going to cover a technical issue first. I shot competitively for about 10 years. And when I first started, I was, like many new shooters, I was a bit of a wreck. I was thinking, oh, I don't want to look stupid. I don't look like I don't know what I'm doing, even though to a large degree I didn't. I had the safety down. Past that, my skills were pretty low. So when I started off, my goal was, well, don't miss the target. Well, that was okay. That was a good place to start. Over time, as I was reliably able to hit the targets, my goal became, well, don't shoot this outer space where I don't get any points. So I was continuing to tighten what it was that I was going for, what I was literally aiming for. The outer white rings, yeah, I could hit those. I didn't get a really good score. So I quickly shifted into, oh, I really want to hit this central black section. And over time I said, ooh, I really want to shoot this bullseye right where the 10 is. And many people will say that, oh yeah, shoot for the bullseye. Here's how I shifted my focus. I said, I'm going to shoot for the top part of the 10, right where the two halves of the 0 come together. That's what I'm going for. And what I found was something absolutely remarkable. When I focused on that specific section, right where the two halves of the 0 came together at the top, when I focused on shooting right there, my shot group went from being this big to being this big, just from having a tighter focus. What's fantastic about this is, while this is a technical example, this same behavioral focus can apply when we're practicing different behaviors or communication skills with others. We're going to shift into a communication example now to complement the technical example that we talked about earlier. One of the things that's coming up in many of the conversations that we have these days is leaders are recognizing that they're communicating some really difficult messages to team members. Oftentimes they'll say, I don't want to confuse people. I don't want to mislead them about what's happening. I don't want to seem out of touch about my own concerns or my own worries. I don't want to inadvertently send a message that we're done changing or we're done adjusting to the situation. While all four of those are good things to not want to do, it's not precise enough to help leaders stay on track. So using those as an example, we can turn that around so that the practice that any person brings is much sharper, much tighter. It could sound like this. I will share the current situation as completely as I can. I will be honest about what is known and unknown in a situation so team members recognize the difference between those two. I will practice being forthright about my own worries, where I've got fears myself about this situation. And I will remind team members that we will have future changes. Things are not done. We're not finished. We're not out of the woods. We will continue to adapt. So with that tighter message, I'm now able to take what I didn't want to do and use that as a starting point to shift into what I was really going for. With that practice, you'll be able to go from I don't want to be out here to I do want to be right in here. Part of this also is going to involve really intentional preparation. This is something we encourage all leaders to do, particularly when there's a message that is coming at a really important or sensitive time. Your focus in your practice is something that you can shift from not just meeting to meeting, even from one part of a meeting to another part of a meeting. So here's an example. If I was brainstorming with a team of people to come up with some new ideas or new solutions, in the first part of that conversation, we may want to be really honest. We may want to be really forthright about some of the limitations that we have, some of the parameters we're working with. It may be budget, it may be team members we can bring in, it may be timeline that we have to work with. As I focus on the second part of that conversation, when we start to create ideas and start to come up with different approaches, that may be where I shift my practice into being more light, to being more inviting, to being more playful with different ideas and creative in how we solve that problem. So that's where I've got two very different focuses, two very different practices for different parts of that conversation. What you're going to find over time is that the most important thing any of us can do is define how we show up. That tight focus with your practice is the way that each of you will be able to have the biggest impact for yourself and for those around you. So good luck with your practice, stay healthy, and I'll see you.